What if the greatest mistake your generation can make is believing it's different from every generation before it? Every era sees itself as more advanced, more informed, and more prepared for the future. Yet history tells a humbling story. While the world constantly changes, human nature rarely does. The same ambitions, fears, pride, and desires continue to shape people across every age. In this chapter, you'll discover why generations repeatedly overlook the lessons of the past, how temporary trends can blind us to timeless truths, and why those who understand history gain a powerful advantage in predicting the future. Because when you learn to see beyond your own generation, you begin to understand human nature in a way that most people never will. Every generation believes it is witnessing a completely new world. New technology, new ideas, new values, and new conflicts create the illusion that history has been left behind. Yet beneath these changes, human nature remains remarkably consistent. The emotions that drove people centuries ago, ambition, fear, envy, pride, and the desire for belonging, continue to shape every generation today. This is where generational myopia begins. We become so focused on what appears new that we fail to recognize the timeless patterns repeating before our eyes. We mistake temporary trends for permanent change and assume the future will be fundamentally different from the past. History quietly warns us otherwise. Every era has celebrated its progress while underestimating the forces that never disappear. Societies rise through discipline, innovation, and cooperation, then often weaken through overconfidence and short-term thinking. The faces change, the technology changes, but the underlying human behaviors remain strikingly familiar. Those who understand this law develop an extraordinary advantage. Instead of reacting to every trend or panic, they learn to recognize recurring patterns hidden beneath changing circumstances. They understand that wisdom comes not from chasing every new idea, but from seeing what history has been trying to teach all along. And the moment you begin looking beyond the surface of your own generation, you start seeing the future with far greater clarity than most people ever will. Seeing beyond your own generation requires more than intelligence, it requires perspective. Most people judge the world only through the events they have personally experienced. They assume today's problems are unprecedented and today's solutions are permanent. Yet history reveals a different truth. Every generation faces its own version of the same human struggles. Economic booms create confidence, followed by periods of uncertainty. New leaders inspire hope, only to face criticism as expectations change. Revolutionary ideas challenge old beliefs, and over time, those same ideas become traditions that the next generation questions once again. The cycle continues because human nature remains constant even when circumstances evolve. The greatest mistake is believing that progress makes us immune to the lessons of the past. Technology may advance, but fear, ambition, status, and the need for meaning continue to guide human behavior just as they always have. People who recognize these recurring patterns are less likely to be swept away by temporary excitement or widespread panic. They pause, compare the present with the past, and ask a simple question: what has changed and what has not? That single habit transforms the way they make decisions. Instead of reacting to headlines, they begin recognizing the deeper forces shaping every generation. And once you learn to separate timeless human nature from temporary cultural change, another powerful pattern begins to reveal itself, one that explains why generations so often misunderstand one another. The conflict between generations rarely begins with facts. It begins with perspective. Every generation believes its values are more practical, more enlightened, or more relevant than those of the one before it. As a result, experience is often dismissed as outdated, while new ideas are accepted simply because they feel modern. This misunderstanding creates an invisible divide. Older generations may view change as a threat to stability, while younger generations often see tradition as a barrier to progress. Both sides focus on their differences and overlook the deeper truth. Each generation is responding to the same human needs for security, purpose, recognition, and belonging. History shows that societies grow stronger when generations learn from one another instead of competing with one another. Experience provides wisdom, while fresh thinking creates innovation. Neither is complete without the other. The wisest individuals resist the temptation to glorify the past or worship the future. They recognize that every era offers valuable lessons, but none possesses all the answers. When you stop judging people by the generation they belong to and begin understanding the timeless motivations that drive them, your view of the world becomes far more balanced. And that balanced perspective reveals the final lesson of this law, one that separates those who simply witness history from those who learn to anticipate it. Anticipating history begins with recognizing that every generation leaves behind both strengths and blind spots. The greatest danger is not repeating the past. It is believing that your generation is incapable of repeating it. That belief creates overconfidence, and overconfidence has been the starting point of countless historical mistakes. When people become convinced that they have finally solved the problems of human nature, they stop questioning their assumptions. They ignore warning signs, dismiss opposing views, and place too much faith in temporary success. Yet history repeatedly reminds us that no generation is exempt from error. True wisdom comes from remaining curious rather than certain. Instead of asking, "Why did previous generations fail?" ask, "How could my generation make the same mistake in a different form?" That single question replaces arrogance with awareness. The people who see further than others are not those who can predict every event. They are the ones who recognize recurring patterns before they become obvious. They understand that technology may transform the world, but fear, ambition, pride, and the desire for power continue to influence human decisions in every age. Once you develop that historical perspective, you stop reacting to the moment and begin thinking across generations. And with that shift in perspective, you are ready to uncover the final principle that turns history into one of the greatest teachers of human nature. History becomes your greatest teacher only when you stop seeing it as a collection of dates and begin seeing it as a study of human nature. Every generation believes it is creating a completely new story. Yet beneath the surface, the same emotions continue to shape human behavior. The names, technologies, and cultures change, but ambition, fear, pride, hope, and the search for meaning remain remarkably constant. This is the deeper lesson behind the law of generational myopia. The future does not belong to those who ignore the past, nor to those who live trapped within it. It belongs to those who understand its patterns and apply those lessons with wisdom. Ask yourself one final question. If history has repeated itself for centuries, what makes you so certain your generation will be different? That question is not meant to create doubt. It is meant to create humility. The more humble your perspective becomes, the more clearly you recognize opportunities, avoid predictable mistakes, and make decisions that endure beyond your own lifetime. Those who understand history are not merely prepared for the future, they help shape it. And with that understanding, we are ready to explore the next law, one that reveals why death, though unavoidable, can become one of the greatest forces for living with purpose.